Hello, welcome to day 5. You're doing really well. If you're here, you're probably actually part of the 20% because most people that start a process like this don't finish. So, I mean, kudos to you. Congratulations for making it this far. Now, we are going to go really deep today. I'm just going to do the introduction. Now, the reason why I'm going to do the introduction and not the entire slate of everything that exists within the 4 buying personalities is it will create overwhelm. When I first understood about the 4 buying personalities, it completely changed the game in terms of how I sold. And when I first got made aware of this, it was from a guy called Joe Pane, who was what we call a master extended disc profiler. He was one of the main guys in Australia that was sharing this behavior profiling tool that we then translated into sales. And it was so powerful. But that was a full 3-day training just to get certified. And then you needed about 10, 20 hours of profiling to become certified as an extended disc profiler under Joe. Joe had slightly higher standards than some of the industry. So to think that we are going to impart all of this to you in one session as part of the 5-day is quite, ambitious, right? So in the spirit of making sure that you have just the essence here to execute and go away with, rather than create overwhelm or like a layer of depth that you potentially at this stage in your journey might not need. So the other way to think about the 4 buyers is this is kind of like the spice on top of your meal, right? This is the finishing piece. This stuff only really works if you have the discovery, the closing, all of that in place. And for those of you who picked up the actual course, the 4 buyer personalities course on the checkout, that does go much, much, much deeper. That's the full advance, down the rabbit hole with me. Giddy up, cowboy. Here we go. So for the purpose of today, I'm going to give you exactly what you need to make more sales and leverage your playbook. If you wanted to go deeper, that's what we do inside of the mini course, the 4 buyers, but also at the same time inside of our accelerator. So with that little preface out of the way, let's dig into my absolute favorite topic that you probably won't see anywhere else, which is the 4 buying personalities. So why should we even hear about this, right? Well, in sales, there are 4 different personalities. And if we sell one way to one personality and we sell another way to the other personality, we might screw that up. You might have even experienced this. It's like someone comes along with their prefabricated script and they try to close you in a specific direct way. But you have a decision-making style that is unique to you. You have a decision-making style that requires specific questions to be answered, for certain values to be focused on, for certain outcomes to be talked about. And so if we use this one-size-fits-all approach to selling, which is just so popular, and I don't know why, because it goes against human behavior, it's like trying to hammer these square pegs into round holes. And what you'll find is as we go through these personalities, excuse me if I say archetypes and personalities, because they're kind of interchangeable, right? Like I call them archetypes, people call them personalities. Archetypes is a little bit too coachy, right? So I call them personalities because it's more sort of digestible, side rant. So understanding this is understanding human behavior. And that's important because essentially with these 4 personalities, we have 15% of what we call the warrior personality, which we'll get into in a moment. We have 30%, which are likely to be the jesters, 30% likely to be the healers, and 15% likely to be wizards, which means in any given day, right, if you have a warrior sales style, you're only catering to 15% of the market, right, which is kind of crazy. And when we start layering this, about half of these people require time, right? So we're looking at 45% of the buyers that you come across. So 2 of the buyers have a time part of their decision-making strategy. We're going to talk about what those are in a moment. The other half have 2 different ones. It's social proof and outcome. But this is just giving you a little preface as to like, if we don't know this and we try to use a one-size-fits-all, we're actually going to shoot ourselves in our foot. We're going to kill our conversions. We're going to sell the wrong way to the wrong person. We're going to bore people, or we're not going to give people the detail that they need. And so let's dig into it, right? So if you've ever wondered why sales conversations went wrong, you've had the sleazy salesperson experience where they basically just pushed all the wrong buttons in your buying personality. Like if you're someone who takes your time, you need details, you plan it out, you go step by step, you research multiple people, and they're trying to close you on the first outing. Crazy, right? Absolutely silly. The other thing that we have here is like, if we don't cater to the buying personality, we can get confused as to why they ghost, right? There's some buying personalities that actually need a commitment. You have to get them to commit to something because if they don't, their likelihood of ghosting skyrockets. And then the last thing that we're talking about is like, sometimes we can convey the value of what we're saying, but because we're using the wrong words or we're not explaining it in a way that matters to that personality, the value proposition just disappears into a vacuum. Like they just don't get it. So if you have a prospect looking at you blankly going like, what? It might be because you're speaking a different language to a different personality. Your selling style tends to be the way that you buy, but not everybody buys the same way that you buy, if that makes sense. So understanding this changes absolutely everything. The first one here is adaptive communication. This is probably the number one most important thing. Adaptive communication and adaptive closing. So we can tailor our language and our questions to the specific person rather than a generic script. Some people are people focused, other people are outcome focused, other people are detail focused. So if we have a detail person, let's speak details, right? If we have people who need social proof and stories, we tell them social proof and stories. If we have outcome people, we focus on bullet points and high level and what they can achieve and get. The second thing that this gives us is decision-making clarity. So understanding how each one of these types has a specific way that they need to make decisions. They have like an unconscious question that they're trying to. The third one is what we call perfect pressure balance. So knowing exactly who needs encouragement and a little push and a stress test, who genuinely needs time, and when it's the real objection of time, right? Like which buying personalities actually have time as part of their decision-making strategy. And then the fourth thing is you'll feel much more confident selling because you'll know who you're talking to. Another thing that happens is when we focus on the curiosity of getting to know which buying archetype is in front of us, we tend to sell better, right? Because we're not focused on the sale. We're actually focused on the relationship, the connection, the curiosity. So your conversions naturally lift when you're more into people than you are into the same. So this is built on proven psychology, right? So Carl Jung came up with this in 1921. It was the Psychological Types and Foundation. William Marston in 1928 called this the emotions of normal people. In 1951, the DISC system, a behavioral assessment tool, was created. And then in 2016, extended DISC was modern behavior profiling. This is what I'm trained at. So this isn't just theory. This is decades of research applied to real world selling situations. And there's a key thing here of understanding the difference between personality profiles and behavior profiling. So what you're learning at the moment is human behavior profiling. We're not necessarily just talking about personality. So what does that mean and why does that matter? So this fixed mindset of personality profile is like pigeonholing people. It's saying that you are only an introvert or you are only this person, where most people are complex. Humans have varying degrees of complexity. So you can be both extroverted and introverted. You might have found that in certain situations. You go out, you're super extroverted, you do what needs to be done, but then you come home and you need to cuddle up into a pillow and recharge your batteries, right? So we can have both. Now, understanding behavior profiling doesn't necessarily mean that the personality archetype that we're speaking to can't do something. It's the art of knowing it takes them less energy to go in a particular direction. Well, what do I mean by that? So if we're dealing with someone that is a detail-orientated person, it's easier for them to talk about the granular details than it is to paint the big emotional picture of what the future looks like. By easier, it costs them less energy, less mental bandwidth, because their brain is used to focusing on details. So why this is important for us in sales is if we really want to create really fast rapport, if we really want to melt sales resistance, one of the best things we can do is we can figure out who's in front of us and speak their language. We can just remove all of that resistance, all of that extra energy that it takes to, convert our question from small to big picture and vice versa. And we can give the questions to them in a way that caters to how they prefer to communicate. So another example of this is you've seen the cognitive dissonance model of now versus expectation. A couple of personalities focus on the now. So they're very good at telling you the problem. But it takes much more energy to tell you about the goals and the outcomes because they don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. But the opposite is also true. You might have someone come in and they're very easily telling you about all their expectations, their outcomes, and the goals of where they want to go to, but they don't really know how to language problems because they don't spend any time thinking about the reasons why they can't. And you might have had the sales experience where you're dealing with someone, typically the warrior archetypes. You'll ask them a question. You say, so what challenges have you got with ABC? And they say, I don't have any challenges, right? And so they'll give you that pushback, because all the warrior sees is outcomes, right? They have all of these goals. So we need to know how to ask questions to get past that initial resistance. An example of that would be, hey, look, you strike me as the kind of person that's like basically going to crush this and get this done. And it's not likely that you wouldn't ever make it happen. But let's just say, worst case scenario, nothing changed. What's that like for you? And so what we've done there is we've actually deployed one of the primes from the playbook to disable the part of their brain that wants to tell you that there are no problems, so that we can get past that resistance and get into the problems, which is what we need to do with the warrior personalities. Again, this is very advanced. So that if this is going like a little bit over your head, don't stress. It's totally okay. All you need to sort of be able to recognize is, am I dealing with a warrior, a jester, a healer, and a wizard? Our advanced courses are for that stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the warrior. So the warrior, these people are focused on the win, the result, the outcome. Everything is about the bottom line and getting results fast. Efficiency is king. In terms of their relationship to time, and the cognitive dissonance model, they are future facing, right? So it's all about expectations. Always think ahead, planning the next move, future orientated. Their energy, these are bullet point people, firm, decisive, no nonsense communication style. So selling to the warrior, there's a couple of things that we need to know. Is it's like guiding a bull through a china shop, right? We need it for it to be their decision. That's the best way we can sell to the warrior. And so they run a strategy of what we call automatic convincer, which is who are you and what have you done? They're likely to make a decision on the spot if they believe that you are credible and you can get a result. Expect them to challenge you. So these are the people that are likely to test your authority to see if you're actually a worthy consultant. So you need to be able to stay confident and certain in their inevitable, testing phases. These people are big picture visionaries, so they don't need every detail. Don't yap on too much with these guys. Just give them exactly what they need and don't over explain. So the Jester is our second type here. So they're focused on fun, connection, and tribe. It's all about relationships, belonging, and enjoying the journey. So these are social proof people, right? Social proof creatures, belonging, do I matter? And their relationship to time is they're looking at positive experiences, future. This is the dream, right? Like tell me the big dream, what I can achieve, etc. Blah, 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 right? Then if we're talking about energy, so these people are warm, chatty, talkative, fun-loving, genuinely enthusiastic, right? You're going to have a good time with these people, but good time doesn't equal sale. So the healer and the wizard are next. And so the healer is the type of person who is a little bit more reserved. They might come across a little bit shy. They don't love the word shy. They prefer reserved. This person is a trust and reputation focus. They care about, how reliable are you? How reputable is this product? They have lots of questions around like, how will this work? It's lots of reassurance in this person. It's the archetype of the mum. They're very warm, concerned, but in terms of the problems with future, these people are very problem oriented. They understand what's going on, or that they're looking to understand the problems more than anything else. That's what they're focused on. They're emotional creatures, so a lot of emotional language here is important. The next one that we're talking about is the wizard archetype, right? So the wizard archetype, this is the first time that we get into one that might be a little bit more difficult to sell, right? So this is someone that is highly analytical, very, very detail orientated. They care about the nitty gritty. Essentially, they care about the small things, right? So effectively, I know it's cheesy, but if you're late to a meeting with this person, that is bad, right? Like these people see the way you handle the little things is the way you're going to handle the big thing. These people shop around a lot and they get quite a bad rap because they seem difficult, because what's happening is they're running a pattern called mismatching where they seem disagreeable, right? So you might say, okay, cool. So the challenge that you mentioned was ABC. And they go, yeah, not quite. It was more CBA. And you go, okay, well, that's just, the same thing, but in a different, you've worded it differently. But the thing with the wizard is that's just what they do, right? The reason why they do that is they have a value around accuracy. It matters to them that it is correct. And so we cannot rush them. Both of these archetypes here run a time-based strategy. The healers run one called period of time, which is a feeling-based strategy, which is I feel like I need a period of time to go by so I can run my decision and feel through it. The thing is they don't understand how much time they need. So we need to give it to them, usually 24 to 48 hours. You say, hey, look, cool, take your time to think about it. Let's book in another call a couple of days from now. And just while you go off and do that, like, what was it that you wanted to think about? And so then we can get into it. And so with the wizard has a really firm time strategy. So this is called multiple time convincer. And so this wizard is going to be very almost disagreeable, right? They're going to come across very distant, very skeptical, very challenging. It can feel like pulling blood out of a stone because they're going to scrutinize every single thing you say. And they get a bad rap because they are so difficult. And they have such like so much goes into making a decision for the wizard. And the interesting thing about this is because it takes them so long to make a decision that they often get disregarded. Now, remember, this is 15% of the population. Warriors make up 15%. And these stats come from the DISC website. And this is specifically Australia. It might vary, margin of 5%, depending on where you're from, different countries. They make up about 33%. The healers make up about 33%. And the wizards make up about 15%. So most of the time you're dealing with some combination of healer and jester, the occasional wizard and warrior personality type. So let's just circle back to the wizard's decision-making strategy. It's called multiple time convincer, which means they need multiple moments to be convinced. And so it's almost like we've got to make 3 micro sales for these guys. They might have meeting 1 where they're discussing the details, meeting 2 with you where they're just confirming details, meeting 3 where they have final details. And on the 4th engagement, they might make a decision. And again, for most people, this is too much, right? The one call closed bros are like that. You either buy or die, right? But these people are serious buyers. They just have a complicated, considered, and sophisticated decision-making strategy that we need to cater to. And my favorite thing to say to a wizard is something along the lines of, hey, look, we absolutely don't need to make a decision to. My job when chatting with you is to figure out what's going on in your business, what's going on in your sales, and what kind of challenges that you might have. And then also what kind of goals that you're looking to achieve and in which time frame. Then by the end of the call, I will let you know all of the details about what it is to work with us. So you can go away and plan and you cross your I's and dot your T's. You certainly do not need to make a decision today. Now to a wizard, that is like dream, that is verbal chocolate. And they love that. They love to feel that sense of, wow, no pressure. You can almost sometimes, especially for the healers and the wizard, you give them something like that, you can almost hear the audible sigh of relief because you're no longer a sales bro. That's like, hey bro, buy my shit. And you're actually a consultant. You say, look, I understand you have a different decision-making strategy. Let's cater to that, right? I'm not going to close you. I'm going to cater to your decision-making strategy. Let's make sure that you make a great decision today. If that's with us, awesome. But if it's with someone else, great. I'll let you know that too. And so this is the power of selling this way. It's very non-attached. It's super powerful and it's so much more persuasive than trying to hit them on the head with a mullet and, convince them to buy something. It's just silly. So look, there's 3 steps here where we're going to transform our sales is understanding the type, adapting our approach to the person, and then building trust based on their language and their decision-making strategy. So I trust that was super valuable today. That brings us to the end of the 5 days. I just want to say massive congratulations. If you made it this far, fantastic. Please let me know, either respond to the email or jump in the Facebook group and just say, look, Caleb, I love this. This was crap. Let me know what we can improve it. Let me know what resource is going to help you maximize the sales. If you are the kind of person that just wants like a little bit of hands-on support, just send us a message as well. Just say, hey, I want to go deeper. I want some hands-on support, some coaching, and we can talk to you about some options there. But right now, with these 5 days, you can go and make more sales. And I would love to see you do that. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here for the 5 days. Thank you so much for hanging around. Thank you so much for giving me a copy of the playbook. I hope this was valuable. And please do let us know if there is something else that we can add to this to make this even more valuable for you. We'll put it together and I'll see you in the next one.